welcome back, everybody, to any listeners that started following us. We are Flocks and S Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dallas, wearing number 9 from Justin Tucker of the Baltimore Ravens. As your resident Ravens fan, I bring the flock.
I'm Brendan. I'm the second half of the podcast. I'm wearing 54 Seahawks, Bobby Wagner. As the 12 in the room, I bring the nest.
So we've got some really awesome stuff for us today. If you've been watching and following us, we're talking a little football with training camp going on. We're going to talk some Ravens, Seahawks. We're probably not really going to talk other teams beyond the Hall of Fame game today. And then we are going to primarily spend our time on the Olympics. Last week we got into kind of some of the problems they've had. We have a couple that we're going to discuss today, but today's highlights are going to be the athletes, US and international. We've got some really awesome things happening with world records, new countries getting medals, and just a lot of fun stuff. So stay with us as we get started. Brendan, do you want to talk to us about Seahawks training camp?
Yeah. So the big thing coming out of this week was Geno Smith, the starting quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, did not practice since Tuesday. He picked up a small injury Tuesday to his knee or hip. They've been pretty unclear which one it was. There was imaging done, which had a lot of people kind of scared that it was going to be worse than it was. Thankfully, the imaging has come back negative, meaning that he should be good to go at the start of this week. Nothing major, nothing serious. They did keep him out of practice Saturday for their mock game, and I think that was just precautionary. And I think it was also a chance to see some other people play and get reps without Geno Smith there. So yeah, Geno Smith's injury is nothing serious, so he should be back to practice this week. I don't think they practiced today. As of recording this, I think their first practice back is tomorrow. So yeah, he should be back. If he's not, then I guess they're lying to us. There's no other injury news other than Geno. Abe Lucas still has not been activated. Uh, Draymond Jones is still battling back from injury. He should be back before the end of training camp. Jaron Reed sat out a couple days ago, but it was probably just a veteran rest day because they haven't put an injury update up. And Cam Young and Jarek Reed are still battling back, but both of them are looking to be back by the end of training camp. So there's no real new injury news. So just a lot of guys still trying to get back, and then Geno Smith hopefully coming back this week. As I mentioned, the Seahawks held a mock game Saturday at Lumen Field. Geno Smith did not participate in it, so the two quarterbacks were Sam Howell and PJ Walker. I think this is big. I think both of them getting the majority of the reps for the mock game is huge. Especially Sam Howell getting chances to run with the ones. I think that's big. Seattle traded for Sam Howell to be the eventual starter. So for him to get good reps now, and possibly if Geno Smith does go down, you'll feel better about Sam Howell starting in his place with these reps. And then PJ Walker, I think he's a solid backup quarterback. In Seattle, he's probably going to be the third stringer. So, but I like seeing him get reps just in case. We saw last
We
year.
talked about it. So many quarterbacks started last year. So
Yeah,
for all of your guys, even the third guy on the depth chart to get reps is valuable.
like you look at it, the past couple of years, you look at the 49ers when they had Garoppolo, Lance, and then Purdy had to come in as a third stringer. You have the Bengals last year where Burrow goes down and Browning has to come in. You have situations. Even Geno went down last year and Drew Lock had to come in. So there's definitely reasons to have 2 to 3 or 2 backup quarterbacks that can come in just in case. But I think Sam Howell will be the actual backup coming into the season. I guess we'll see with the preseason how that goes. But I do think Sam Howell will be the backup, and then PJ Walker, if we can get him to the practice squad, will probably just end up on the practice squad. Or if someone wants him, then I don't think Seattle's going to be too upset if he ends up going somewhere else. I guess we'll see what happens there. But talking about the mock game further, nothing really exciting happened. The defense definitely won the day, which I'm happy about, I think. I want to see Mike McDonald's defense in action, so I think preseason games will be the first real time we'll see it, because I don't know how much they were actually doing during the mock game. It seemed like they're still in their installment phase in terms of they haven't fully gotten where they want to be yet. So I think preseason will definitely be where we see that defense come to its full. But the defense still won the day, and I think that's huge. It's not like our offense played poorly. The offense still, did well, but the defense definitely won the day. On offense, the real standouts were Sam Howell had a really good game. Had 2 touchdown passes, no interceptions, and from what I've heard, because the Seahawks don't post any video of the game, he didn't throw any passes that were even close to being intercepted, which I think is
Nice.
good, especially when you consider Sam Howell led the league in interceptions last year. I don't personally blame him for that. He was in an offense that threw the ball a lot under Bieniemy. Bieniemy threw the ball way too much. They had no run game. Sam Howell led the league in passing attempts, passing yards, and interceptions, and I think those 3 all kind of tie into each other. If you have the most attempts, so you have the most yards and the most interceptions, because the most can go wrong. So, yeah, he probably would have had a lot of interceptions anyway, but I don't think he would have led the league in them had it not been for that offense's struggles and needing to throw the ball a lot. Other than that, there was a couple standout offensive line choices where we had a couple guys with the first team that was kind of interesting. Um, right tackle was one. They had Roquan O'Neal playing right tackle, who was a undrafted free agent of the Raiders last year that we poached off their practice squad. He did not look great at right tackle, which is all right. They have a few. They have George Fant, the veteran that used to be with the Seahawks, went to the Texans that the Seahawks signed, and then the Jets. I believe that the Seahawks signed this year. So I think he'll end up starting at right tackle if Lucas is not ready to go. Other than that, there was no real standouts that I've heard of. Again, can't watch the game, so I can't speak a ton to it. But it was good to see Sam Howell and PJ Walker get reps. It was good to see the defense win the day, just to see that Mike McDonald defense doing well. And then it was good to see actual game action. And that really does it for Seahawks training camp so far. I think we'll see a lot more come preseason in a week or 2 weeks, when they have their first game against the Chargers. I think we'll see a lot from them there. Other than that, that's pretty much it for Seahawks training camp. So I'll pass it over to Dallas for Ravens training camp.
Nice. Well, yeah, sounds like you got some exciting things going on there in Seattle. So obviously exciting to see Mike McDonald's defense kind of come to fruition, given that that side of the ball has kind of been a struggle the last couple of years for you. And yeah, we talked about Sam Howell. We see a lot of potential. We see, a lot of talent. He's a very energetic guy. And when you look at how Drew Lock was, when you look at just kind of the energy they have in that building and the culture that's kind of always been present, when you look at Pete Carroll's energy, just to have those hype guys in the locker room, even if they're not starters, are very impactful.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'll be really exciting for you in Seattle. As for Baltimore, there's no real news. Baltimore tends to keep pretty tight-lipped on roster developments and injuries and all of that. They tend to just be like, well, you'll find out when we choose to tell you, which is probably when we'll tell everybody because we have to. Linderbaum did miss the end of last week with a soft tissue issue, but he's expected to be back this week. Tavon Mullen is still out with the shoulder injury. There were some other absences from practice, minor things. Bateman missed a day. Devontae Welker missed a day, but a lot of that is also kind of rest and recovery. So yeah, no real major concerns on the injury front as of yet. We obviously hope and pray it stays that way. And then Keaton Mitchell still out, which not expecting anytime soon. Um, the big kind of focus for pre or training camp this year has been Lamar's short time game winning drives. Just kind of moving the ball down the field as fast as possible, throwing it when you can't run it. As we've seen in playoffs, that sometimes is the struggle, or even in close games, that's sometimes his struggle because they rely so much on the run game. They don't quite know how to have those 1 minute drives, no timeouts, or those 45 seconds, one timeout. You got to use the sideline. So it's definitely kind of one of their weaker areas. So that's been a main focus for this offseason, as well as working on his connection with Bateman, who missed all of training camp last year, was hurt kind of throughout this past season. They didn't have time to kind of reestablish that. So that's been their primary focus this training camp, which has been really great to see, just them working on it. The defense wins a lot in Baltimore and a lot in Baltimore's training camp. Marlon Humphrey picked off Lamar, I believe, 5 times last week across different practices. Lamar got so upset with a drive this past week where he threw his helmet in the middle of a drive that he was flagged for. It's Ravens defense. This is what they do. This is who they are. Um, and it really is, this time is kind of for quarterbacks to experiment. If you've been watching, there was a lot of conversation this past week about the 49ers training camp and how many interceptions Brock Purdy was throwing. And he said in his press conference after that this is the time for quarterbacks to try new things, to experiment with the offense, what works and what doesn't. I expect Lamar to have interceptions. I expect him to have missed throws. I expect a lot of problems in training camp because it tells me he's trying to improve on the things they're not good at. And so for me, seeing interceptions or seeing missed drives or things like that, it doesn't bother me. I'm not concerned. Lamar's never been a massive interception guy. So as long as there's improvement, as long as he's making those connections, I'm happy. As long as we're getting guys healthy, I'm happy. So yeah, it's been a good week of practice. They're getting ready for their game versus Philly. Got to restart that win streak. It's Washington kind of busted it up last year, and Ravens like to win, and that's Ravens culture. A lot of people say preseason games don't matter, and in their own right, they don't. They don't matter towards your record. But Baltimore recognizes that these games kind of define rookies' careers. They define if you're going to have a career, whether with Baltimore or with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
These games do matter to somebody,
Yeah.
and Ravens like to win. So, no, it doesn't go towards their overall win total for this season. It is important to Ravens culture, and it's important to the guys stepping on the field for the first time. And there are some people, this will be their only NFL game ever. It
Yeah.
matters.
It matters.
So, yeah, they're looking to restart their win streak and, yeah, play Philly in 2 weeks, and that'll be really exciting. We're playing some preseason games they don't typically play, so that'll be fun to see.
Nice, nice. Yeah, it's good to hear that the Ravens do take preseason seriously, because I think preseason's one that I feel like needs to be taken seriously, even if it is preseason. Because yeah, it is.
Yeah,
This is these players' only chance to make it, and for some of them, preseason is their only time to even see the field. So to hear that they want to take it seriously and they want
yeah.
to go out
And
there
they
and
want those guys to like get that chance and show. I mean, live your dream, even
yeah,
for just a drive, a game, a day. Live your dream, and the emphasis they put on that is impressive. So I never knock them when they're like, "Oh, yeah, our win streak matters," and people are like, "Well, it doesn't matter overall. It matters to a lot of guys,
yeah,
and let's not diminish that."
yeah. Yeah. Sounds like everything is going pretty well over there in Baltimore for training camp, so that's good to hear.
Heck yeah.
Um, moving on, we did have football this week. Yay! Uh, the Hall of Fame game was played on Thursday between the Bears and the Texans. Um, I'm gonna pass it to Dallas to start us
Yeah.
off, to kick us
Um,
off.
it was I see what you did there. I see
Yeah,
what you did.
yeah,
Um, it was really great just to have football back. Obviously, we were disappointed. We were watching that game together. We were disappointed it ended early.
yeah.
I felt cheated. I felt deprived, only getting 2.5 quarters. But it was just good to see football back on the screen. Obviously, the Hall of Fame game, watching these guys get into Canton and get their enshrinement is always a really big deal. Uh, excited for those guys' careers and for it to equate to this. It's kind of its finality of this is really the last step you can take in your football career. So that's always really awesome to see. It's preseason and early preseason, so no starters played. We expected that. There were a lot of questions about Caleb Williams starting. That's crazy. No, he was never gonna play in this game.
Mm,
The turf at this field has been known to cause a lot of injuries. It's pretty hard on the body, so rarely do any starters play. And you kind of want to wait and see how your protection packages are going to hold up, how all of these things will happen. I think we expect to see Caleb Williams probably weeks 2 or 3 for preseason. But no, I was not shocked that we didn't see him now. The
no.
other big thing to come out of that game, obviously, was the first time we got to see the new kickoff rule.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not gonna explain it if you haven't seen it before. Maybe we'll attach a link um, to this video where you can kind of go and see
How
the
it works.
difference. Um, but in short, you do have to return the ball. If it is not returned in the end zone, you have to return the ball, but also the defending team is closer to you and they're closer together. It's designed to mitigate concussions
Yeah.
during this play. I have kind of a twofold opinion on that. The majority of kickoffs were not returned anyway.
Hmm.
I guess I haven't seen enough stats on it, but I didn't think it was a high concussion play anyway, because the majority of them, the ball flies into the back of the end zone or they take a knee. It's not one we see it returned a whole ton. So
I
I'm
think
a
that's
little confused as to why we thought we needed this step when now you're forcing guys to return it. Um, for safety, you did make an interesting point when we were talking about this the other day, is now with the return team and the kickoff team blockers being closer together, you won't have quite the collision that maybe they've had in the past. But I'll just be kind of curious to see how this all ends up statistically. It's currently on a 1 year trial deal, which means
hmm
they can make rule changes in season without owner approvals and things like that just to
yeah.
tweak it. There are going to be a lot of things we'll see how referees go about calling penalties on it. We saw a couple during the Hall of Fame game where if you left the line before the ball was touched, it's a penalty. So seeing kind of refs get consistency on that and clarity, just seeing how all of that plays out is definitely going to be interesting. I also think we're going to see more touchdowns from
Yeah.
kickoff returns. Statistically, if you return the ball more, this will happen more. We did note, the average return yardage during the Hall of Fame game was like the 25, 26 yard line.
So it's
So it's not
not.
like they're giving a massive advantage, but if you return the ball more
Yeah.
statistically, you're likely to score more. So
And then
just seeing how that plays out throughout the year, but it was good to see it. I was glad that I got to watch it on television because I've seen some
yeah.
little animations of it or you know just X's and O's, and I was like, I'm confused. So
And then
to see it last week was really good.
um
Um,
I have a few things on the opening kickoff.
yeah,
Uh, so for the like reasons they went to this one, I think it's twofold. I think first of all, for the you must return it. I think that's to bring it back to not being an actual play. I think a lot of
not just
people's
ceremony.
yeah, a lot of people's complaint with like the kickoff recently is, as you said, a lot of kickoffs went either through the back of the end zone or they were caught, but then immediately they took a knee and the team could just start at the 25-yard line, which took a lot of returns out of the game. So I think the NFL wanted to make this play an actual play again rather than like a ceremonial, we're going to kick it off, even though we pretty much know the result and where the other team is going to probably start with the ball. And then I think, yeah, as I said, as she said that I said, um, I think they, in order to make it safer, they move the teams closer. That way you're not going full speed at the point of contact once you start blocking or once you're
Yeah.
being blocked. So I think that's like the twofold reason as to which they changed things around. Um, it was great to see though. I think this could be a really fun play if if teams get creative with it and have fun. I think this could be a really interesting kickoff and fun start to a game or fun possession change. I guess we'll have to wait and see what teams do. I really don't think we'll see that during preseason. I think teams will try to keep it very basic. But during the season, as things get progressively more understood, I think teams will start getting really creative. Um,
Well, and as special teams coordinators, I think now that they've seen it as well, and with training camp can install packages and different things,
yeah.
put different guys back there. I think the other thing with this new system, you're not quite beholden to the same which blockers we put out there. So it's going to be
Oh
interesting to
yeah.
see how special teams coordinators kind of change who they typically have because you don't quite need the speed guys on the front that you used to.
Yeah, you
Maybe
can
you have some your bigger D linemen or
or
defensive ends.
linebackers or
Yeah. So it'll just be interesting to
and
see
then
how it develops.
a couple other things with it. There's been reports that teams are considering just treating it like a normal kickoff and just booting it through the back of the end zone. Um, they are technically punished for doing that. If you boot the ball straight into the end zone or through the back, the other team gets to start at the 30 rather than the 25 if they kicked it or like if they had to return it. So you are giving up a couple more yards, but as we said, the average return so far has been around the 26. So I think a lot of teams will sit there and go, "What's the extra few yards?" and just
Yeah.
mitigate the risk of being returned on.
I
So
think it'll I think it'll definitely be like a tape situation. Like if you're playing a
mhm.
team that last week maybe had two kickoffs returned for a touchdown,
Or two really good
you know,
returns.
yeah, Baltimore, for instance, might tell Tucker, "We don't care. Put it through the back so that they can't return it for a touchdown." Like, yes, we lose a couple yards, but we have a lot of faith in the defense.
Yeah,
We don't
it
want to give up touchdowns on this. So,
and I think that's also an interest like because I think this kickoff there's going to be a lot of strategy around it of
yeah,
like you're going into a week against I don't know who has a. Let's just say Baltimore, because Baltimore had a couple guys return kicks. They had Wallace return a punt. Let's say you're going against Baltimore, and the week before Baltimore does, they return 2 kicks, one for a touchdown, one to like the 50 or something, and you're like, let's just boot it out of the back of the end zone. That's a
Yeah,
viable that's a good strategy. I think
strategy.
this is going to be something that just kind of like flows throughout the season, and I think it's really cool because I think the special teams coordinators, that those guys are never really featured ever. You don't talk about a
Yeah,
special teams coordinator unless they take over as a head coach or they become a head coach. So
yeah,
for those guys to kind of have a play that they can hang their hat on and be like, we can change this, we can adjust, we can have fun with it, I think will be pretty huge for them. So this new
I
kickoff
agree.
rule will definitely be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing it in season when teams start to like really put together packages and really put together plays.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then with the end of, or with the Hall of Fame game, also came the end of Hard Knocks in preseason for the Giants, or post. No, what was it called?
It was preseason? No,
No, off season.
off season.
Marked the Giants end of the Giants Hard Knocks off season show. And then the Bears preseason Hard Knocks starts, I believe, next week. Um, I just want to share some thoughts on this as we transition from one Hard Knocks to the next. We've talked about we love seeing the intricacies.
Behind the
Be-
curtains.
yeah, because we are such hardcore football fans. We love all of the Hard Knocks showing us just kind of this behind the curtain, behind the scenes, what's going on. Sometimes it's how we've become invested in players or even in teams that typically we don't pay a ton of attention to. I think this was the biggest shit show in Giants history in a while.
Yeah.
Not because the show was bad. Credit to HBO and to the Hard Knocks crew. Credit to the NFL. I think it's done really well.
Yeah.
But I felt like half the show was this silent cat fight between Joe Shane
And John Mara.
and John Mara. Of, well, one of us wants Saquon, but one of us forced us to pay Daniel Jones. So now we're making all of these decisions on how to move forward in our future
Mm-hmm.
with this weird cat fight that happened off camera, but we never saw it, so we're just seeing the resulting tension.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I felt. I believe as Joe Shane, I would have said somewhere in this show, well, maybe if I hadn't been forced to pay Daniel Jones, I could have kept Saquon. Because I think, unfortunately, you look like the asshole during Hard Knocks.
Absolutely.
Like, he looks incompetent. I'm not saying he is. Obviously, no disrespect to him as a person, but you look incompetent when you're not sure what the market's doing with Saquon, when you're like, I don't really know what teams are interested in him. Like, when you say that to your boss, you sound stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It's your job to know.
Yeah.
The Insiders, which is a show you can watch every day,
Yeah.
were reporting live which teams were interested, what their base market offers to him
Mm-hmm.
were, all of these things. So for you to sit there and go, I don't know, you sound stupid.
Yeah.
Now, it was fair of you to say, hey, we have a cap out. There's only so much we can offer him. If another team, whether it's the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Ravens, whoever, come out and offer higher, there's nothing I can do. Like, I have to build an entire team. I cannot have just Daniel Jones and Saquon. I love Saquon. I think he's a great running back.
Mm-hmm.
We have proven that doesn't work. Saquon has been dealing with a bottom 3 offensive line his entire career, and you see it in his injuries and you see it in his production. They had to upgrade at O-line.
Yeah.
I give credit for upgrading at pass rusher. I think going out and getting Malik Neighbors was a good choice. Get Daniel Jones a top target. But yes, you got rid of your best player on the offense on this team because you paid Daniel Jones. That's what happened.
And we talked about it last week. Daniel Jones's contract is
Stupid.
stupid. He did not deserve.
No.
He did not get that contract for what he produced. I feel like it was very much we still think you can be this good, but I don't know if you give him a contract for that. Based on the first few years. Like, he had that one playoff year. I think you
Yeah.
franchise tag him last year after getting hurt, because he was hurt all last season. You sucked. So I think you just have to franchise tag him and be like, you have one more year of you playing to prove to us that you can actually be our starting quarterback of the
We've
future.
talked about this. I do not understand, I guess, the fear. I mean, okay, yes, you may spend a little more money down the road. Yes, the price tag goes up. But when you are uncertain at quarterback, Daniel Jones was a first round pick, which means you had a 5th-year option plus 2 franchise tags you could have used.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you had done that, you would still be on, I think you'd be on your first franchise tag. You could have kept it, you could have made all of the improvements you just made while keeping Saquon.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think as Shane, you should have been like, you made this decision. You did this. You forced me to do this. You forced us into this position. So now don't jump up my ass because the Eagles
Could offer him more.
have some kind of cap god over there in their front office, because when you're looking at what they're paying everybody,
Yeah.
that they can pay Saquon, that's not my fault. That's not on me. What's on you is not knowing, is looking your boss in the eye going, I don't know what's going on. That's, now you sound stupid.
Yeah. It was
Oh,
definitely like a just interestingly, like, it almost felt scripted at times too, which
yes,
is
we talked
added
about, yeah.
to like the weird situation of like it all, because like especially during their like free agency portion,
Hmm.
they named like 3 guys in that free agency portion, and I think they might, and then
They got all 3.
and I think this part of this is because it was edited in retrospect. I think they edited it to be more like, hey, they said these guys and then they got these guys, so let's like focus on that. But it just made it feel scripted. I don't think it was at the time, like, but
It's
the
just way it
editing,
was edited.
yeah, made it feel a little more scripted and a little more like this is what's happening. Uh,
No, I agree.
Other than that, I think it was a real, like, again, Hard Knocks nails it every time. I feel like no matter what, it's really well done. The production's great. Um, so I'm always looking forward to Hard Knocks. I will say this season they're doing off season, training camp, and in season, and they've kind of changed things around. So like off season's never really been done before. Training camp is a really standard one they do. That's like every year, and then the in season Hard Knocks has been changed too. It's now 4 teams being focused on. It's the whole an AFC North division, so it's going to include Baltimore, which is actually going to be really fun. I think. I don't know how much we're going to actually see of Baltimore, considering we're bouncing between 4 teams, and Baltimore
Yeah.
tends to be a little more reserved in what they give to the media. So I guess we'll see there. But we did have a take where I think if Hard Knocks is going to do this, where they go off season, training camp, in season, I think they should follow one team or one division. I think that would be probably the best way to do it, to where you could see these players that get signed, drafted, they go through training camp, you kind of get invested in their stories, and then you move into the season where you're still invested in these players or these teams, and you can now see kind of their progress within the
Yeah.
season. Um,
Like, I think, okay, if you'd taken the Giants, for instance, we saw Malik Neighbors, we saw his draft interview, we saw him get drafted.
yeah,
Then we would get to follow him during training camp and just to watch his journey.
yeah,
Now, no one was shocked that the Bears were picked for preseason with the first overall pick and Caleb Williams and this really high draft pick. So even if you had changed the offseason to the Bears and to kind of see how they led up to making that decision of there were conversations. Were they going to pick Caleb? Were they going to keep Fields? And just kind of follow this one team in this one track. I am excited, obviously, for the in season this year to follow the AFC North. It's the most competitive division in
yeah.
football. It is one of the physically most punishing divisions in football.
Mm-hmm.
At least 3 of those teams are defensive juggernauts. That's who they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do. You have your top 5 defensive players come out of that division. The one thing I'll say, well, yes, the Ravens tend to be a little more tight-lipped. They were actually featured on the original Hard Knocks. The Bullies of Baltimore were the first Hard Knocks ever.
Mm.
So to kind of see it come back to Baltimore, I actually think they're a little excited for. I don't I don't expect to see a ton of Lamar. I kind of think he'll be like, get away from me. He is extremely private. That's why he's turned down quarterbacks. He doesn't do a ton of interviews that he doesn't have to. He's always respectful and he's always available to the media, but he keeps it very kind of short. He doesn't like to get into it. He doesn't talk about his personal life. Um, but especially this year, with hopefully Lamar and Burrow healthy and really to see a battle for the AFC North, it will
Mm-hmm.
be exciting. But I do agree. I wish they'd pick one team and then we follow them all year round.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, we get invested in these players. We talked the Jets preseason last year. We got invested in their 2 undrafted wide receivers.
Yeah.
And we were like, man, I'm hoping they're going to make the team. I don't really care about the Jets.
Yeah.
So,
And then like
um,
the year with the Lions when they did it,
yeah,
like we kind of got invested in the Lions as like a team under Dan Campbell and what they were
yeah,
building there. Even now, I kind of like to watch the Lions and kind of like they're not my second team, but they're a team that I'm like when they're on, I will always cheer for unless they're playing against Seattle.
yeah.
Um, and even when they play against Seattle, those games are really fun. So I'm kind of just like here for it, you know. Like the last few
I
times
just,
we played them, it's been like a really good game. So even if the Lions won, I could sit there and be like, the Lions played a great game. Like I don't know, really.
I just felt bad when the Ravens played the Lions last.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I was like, because I like the Lions. I'm watching them on Hard Knocks. I was like, yeah, I'm kind of invested in this team and this head coach that everyone's kind of doubted and been like, he doesn't fit the mold. He doesn't. He's different. He's himself. He's an honest version of himself, which I respect. And so to watch the Ravens just kind of thump the shit out of him, I was
yeah.
like, this is sad. Can we? I'm kind of rooting for y'all here. Let's do something. But so yeah, that was it for Hard Knocks. The last thing that happened this week was the top 100 list came out in its finality.
Mm-hmm.
This was a terrible list this year. I don't
Yeah,
understand half of it. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it because we could do probably 2 episodes on its own just
yeah.
disagreeing with this list.
Um, yeah. And I have the
Tyreek
list in
Hill
front of
was
me in case we need to reference
okay.
it. Yeah,
Tyreek Hill was the first wide receiver to come in at number 1. I'm not saying that Tyreek Hill couldn't be your number 1 wide receiver. That's a fair statement. To be the best player in the NFL, is mildly insane.
Yeah. If you look at it, the top five were Myles Garrett, Patrick Mahomes at 4, Christian McCaffrey, and Lamar Jackson. Tyreek Hill was number 1. I don't think you can put him number 1 over any of the 3 of Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, and Mahomes. Like, Mahomes won the Super Bowl last year. Mahomes still had a great year, is the best quarterback in the league, in the world. Lamar Jackson won MVP, was the best player in the season last year, in the regular season last year. Did have his playoff struggle against the Chiefs, but like that wasn't necessarily his fault. They didn't run the ball a ton. And then Christian McCaffrey at one point was an MVP candidate and did end up getting, I believe, an MVP vote. So, like, Tyreek Hill had a great season. I'm not denying that. But for him to be above those 3, I think already this list shows that it has no criteria. Like, one of our biggest problems
So
with the
inconsistent.
the biggest problem with the top 100 list, and you could see it with another person. Aaron Rodgers played 4 snaps this season and was at 92 on the top 100 list. He made the list. Okay. Now, I'm not saying, because Peyton Manning, the year he had his neck injury and sat out pretty much the whole year, was also put on the list. So there is precedent for this. But the issue I have with the top 100 list is there's no like actual criteria. We don't have a thing for it. So like you could vote on this player based on past history, like we did with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was getting votes because of who he is and what he's
not because
done.
of what he did.
You have people like, people who are 1-year wonders. Like, I can't find one now. CJ Stroud's on the list. This was his rookie year. He's played 1 year, had a great year, and came in 20th. I don't think CJ Stroud's the 20th best player, but because of what he did, he's there.
Yeah.
There's this like very little criteria to what defines it. Are we going based off the most recent season? If we're going off the most recent season, then Lamar Jackson should probably be 1, Christian McCaffrey should be 2, and Patrick Mahomes should be 3. That's like the logical order for what happened last season. If we're going off of what they've done in their career, then Patrick Mahomes
should be 1.
Should be 1. Aaron Rodgers should be significantly higher. Lamar Jackson should be up there. There's just no.
There's no consistency.
Yeah.
I agree, because I saw a take the other day that it was, we think the top 100 is based off of what you'll do next year. I was like, that's even more insane. That brings even more questions to the list. Look, it's player voted, which I think is great.
Yeah.
But the only criteria seems to be you can't retire.
Yeah.
If you retired, you're not eligible. That's why Jason Kelce's not on this list.
It's why Aaron Donald's not on this list. Like, Aaron Donald and Jason Kelce are both not on this list.
I think it should be about who you were this season, who you are right now, and what you've done.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers making the list, like you said, there is precedent for. I get it. Came in at 92nd. Joe Burrow came in the 30s or 40s, I think. Once again, was hurt for over half the year.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a complete lack of criteria or how we're basing this off of, and so it makes it hard to have true validity or for me to understand why guys came in where they came in at. I think several Ravens defensive players were way too low. Tyreek Hill is a great wide receiver. He's not my number 1. He is in my top 5.
He's in my top 10. I think he's
top
not even
10.
I think
I'd have to think about it now.
He might be below Myles Garrett because Myles Garrett came in 5th. But I could also
I'm just talking wide receivers.
Oh, wide receivers. He's in my top 5.
But
based wide receivers,
I don't
yes.
think he's my number one. Um,
I'd have to look at it more, but
but
yeah.
I just don't. We talked about this yesterday. We were talking wide receiver rooms,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? And how the Dolphins have a top 5 room overall.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's hard to have one wide receiver with a great room at the top when it's like, well, it's hard to double team you when we have to be cognizant of all of the wide receivers.
Yeah.
Kind of, I feel the same way about McCaffrey. McCaffrey is a great running back. He is the best running back in the league. But he does have pressure taken off of him when you have to account for Debo, Ayuk, Juszczyk,
Kittle.
Kittle, all of these guys. Their mere presence impacts what
Teams do on defense.
McCaffrey can do. Lamar's the same way on the Ravens. Lamar Jackson's sheer presence means you have to always be cognizant of the run. Even if there's no running back in the backfield, you go, he's probably going to throw it, but maybe he'll run. When that presence impacts your game, I think it's harder to quantify your individual success. Tyreek Hill is in a top 5 wide receiver room. Yes, he's great. Yes, he's extremely fast, but he has a great room around him that allows his furthered success.
Yeah.
So for me, I just have a hard time with him being at number 1. Um, and to me, I think that's also why I don't quite have him as my number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah.
When you think Justin Jefferson is always double teamed because he is the best wide receiver on that field and for that
Mm-hmm.
team, and he doesn't have a ton of help, he's going up and getting it on his own. He has to deal with that on his own. Devontae Adams is on his own in
Yeah.
Vegas. So his production is something he has to fight every drive, every snap, every yard for. It does matter. It is an
Mm-hmm.
impact. It is something you can clearly see. So no, they don't quite have the yardage that Hill has, or maybe they don't have the touchdowns that Hill has, but they have to fight a lot harder for everything they get.
Because they're the main.
And
I will also say though, it kind of goes both ways though, because if you think about it, because Hill's in the top 5, he gets target less. Like if
yeah,
you think about it that
no, and
way, but
I completely agree. I'm not saying that's what I do. Hill is very much a top 5 wide receiver.
no, I'm just saying,
I just do
just to,
think there is a level of contextualizing it.
yeah, it
I
it
also think it just is. This list is, I just want criteria. I want there to be a set. We went based off of how
mm,
this season has gone, or we went overall career, or
something
XYZ. I
something
just want
like
something
that.
more consistent.
Yeah.
You know, you talked Stroud. Stroud had a great
Season.
year as a rookie, but you also have to remember they won the division because Jacksonville fell apart. It just collapsed. Jacksonville was running away with the division at 8-3, a record of 8-3, and then lost the last like 5 of 6
Yeah.
because he
It
was hurt. Like there are just other things that
and
we
the
don't
Texans had a
add
really
context
easy
to.
schedule. And the Texans had
Yeah,
a really easy schedule. Like
and it does help when we were talking about this last year. I saw the Texans on the Ravens schedule and I went, win. Y'all have never done anything. I know, like, everyone underestimated you. So yeah, Stroud had a great season. He threw very few interceptions. I think it was a league low and low for a rookie quarterback. He did great things.
yeah,
But we have to add context. So to put him at 20, if you're
above
going to give Burrow credit for what he's done, that's insane.
yeah,
That's insane.
it is. The list just doesn't have any consistency or criteria. Um it is still an interesting thing to look at because it's what the players vote
Definitely.
on. I do wish that yeah, we'd make it more consistent, make it have criteria, but at the end of the day, We're still gonna watch it. We're still gonna think it's
Oh
interesting.
yeah, I mean, we're still
Um, I do wish they make those changes. But every year we go into it knowing that we're probably gonna disagree with it. We're
yeah,
probably gonna disagree with the vast majority of it, as a matter of fact. But
but it's a good conversation topic.
yeah, and to anyone that wants to know, no, we will not be doing a top 100 ourselves. That would just
No,
be
God, no.
no. We don't have the
I
time for that.
I can rank quarterbacks. I could probably give you my top 5 wide receivers,
I could probably
a
give you my
top
top
5
5.
defensive players,
Yeah,
and that would probably cover it.
I might be able to give you a top 5 running backs list,
I would struggle with that.
but running backs is a position that you just don't know because of it's so dependent on other positions.
Well, and okay, we kind of talked about this when we were seeing the running back market. Because I was like, I kind of feel like the fact that the running backs make so little is the Ravens' fault.
Yeah,
Because they'll put 5 guys on the roster who are at the end of their career or never been that great and be like, we'll make it work. Because they have a great O line, they have a run first offense.
yeah.
So I think certain teams make guys look really great. And then, I would think for running backs, I would have C-Mac, Saquon, and Derrick Henry, and that's probably where my list would end.
I would put Chubb up there. Nick
Oh,
Chubb.
I forget about Chubb because he
I'd do
was
Nick
hurt
Chubb.
last year.
Yeah, because he ended up getting hurt. Nick Chubb, and then pressed for a fifth guy. I could probably do Josh Jacobs, maybe Jonathan Taylor, maybe one of
Yeah,
those two. It does
that's when
get.
I do. That's when I start to get into the like
How do you
maybe a
consider it?
lot of you rank right there. I think Dalvin Cook with Minnesota was right there.
But now
Um,
you can't even kind of
he's not
put
even with
him.
the team.
Yeah,
Like,
it
so
it's
I
an
would
interesting
probably
one.
have those 4, and then everybody else
Yeah,
moves per game per year.
yeah. But that being said, that is the end of our top 100. We'll be moving from football and coming into the Olympics. Um, we're gonna start off with a couple more controversies, and then we'll really get into the athletes and the great part of the Olympics. So
We are going to focus on the athletes, but we do have to talk about these two things.
we're probably not gonna spend a ton of time. Quickly,
I,
I'm gonna pass it to Dallas to talk about the couple that we have here, and then we'll move on to the great athletes.
awesome. I get to talk the hate. That's fun. Um, so we're gonna start with the Netherlands and the Dutch. Their Dutch beach volleyball team, their men's team, has a registered sex offender on their team, um, which is wildly disappointing. Not
Mhm.
just because he's on the team, but when you get into the specifics of everything that happened, we're not gonna do. It's
No,
we kind of talked about this last week. We are avoiding triggers and trigger warnings at all costs. Um, if you need more information, by all means, go look into it. But he is a registered sex offender. Spent 1 year of a 4-year sentence in prison. Given the crime, I think that's way too low. I have my own
yeah,
opinions on that. But then the Olympics is about representing your country to the best of your ability.
absolutely.
How, as the Netherlands, did you think this guy represented your country in
Yeah,
any capacity?
it
That's ridiculous.
hmm
And then he has to have been given special treatment.
yeah,
When you watch them, he has a massive security team. He comes in through his own door. All of these contingencies are made for his safety. And quite frankly, I couldn't give a rat's ass about his safety when he didn't care about others' safety. So, as the Netherlands, what was going through your brain?
when you
And as
decided.
Beach, I'm kind of shocked that beach volleyball as an organization allowed you
To compete
to participate.
and qualify.
Um, there was a thing in the US years ago with a male swimmer that got in trouble in college. And USA Swim, the judge gave him a light sentence. He was like, hey, I don't want to ruin this guy's career or this guy's future. USA Swim came out and went, I don't know what future you think he has. Like, no, you are not allowed to compete ever again. That's called justice. You do bad things, there are punishments.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can debate all day long what those punishments should be, how countries handle these things, who maybe gets special treatment. If you were convicted of a heinous crime, that should be the end of your dreams.
Yeah.
You ended someone else's. The fact that you were allowed to compete in the Olympics, the fact that beach volleyball as an organization didn't go, nah, son, not happening. That the Netherlands as a country didn't go, nah, son, you do not get to represent us. This is not who we are. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And the Olympics are a family affair. How many people's kids do you see running around? Like, people bring in their families to support their parents, their siblings. How are you allowing this to happen?
Yeah. It's one. I don't know if it's on a bunch of people. I think it's on the Dutch Olympic Committee. It's on the French, like for them to even allow this. It's on the Olympic.
Yeah.
Like it's on a bunch of people to allow him to compete. And I think they all have to take the blame equally for this. But yeah, I think he should not be allowed. I think this is a bad look on the Dutch. It's a bad look on France. It's a bad look on the Olympics to have someone that's has this on their record to be allowed to compete. Like,
Yeah.
it just
No,
is.
I completely agree. This is crazy. This is crazy. It's like, it's one more check of like,
We're doing
just in
stupid.
case we didn't think it was going bad enough. By the way, moving on, this one gets a little complicated,
Yeah.
but we are going to quickly discuss women's boxing. Here's the thing, you and I have both said this, there have been so many conflicting
Yeah.
reports.
We've
And
seen
I
like
did some research this morning
okay.
that the IBA, the International Basketball
You mean boxing?
Boxing Association, and the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, have been fighting for years.
Okay.
And they have been going back and forth with each other on criteria and rule breaking for years.
Mm-hmm.
So in Rio, the IBA was caught fixing games.
Mm.
So the IOC said, no, we will now be in charge of governing the boxing committee going into the Olympics. Because you and I talked about with women's boxing, how can you have different rules?
That's how.
How
Okay.
can you have different criteria? That's how. Is the IBA has gotten in trouble
Mm-hmm.
with the IOC in the past.
Got it.
So IOC was in charge in Tokyo and was the governing body over boxing. And they continued that into Paris. They were like,
Okay.
we are going to remain the governing body because of controversies or problems. And the IOC does think, and this came up, that their gender testing in general is invalid and illegitimate. That the
Okay.
way they do this and the times they do it seem very convoluted and
Okay.
kind of weighted. So the way it looks to the IOC is when the IBA disqualified these two boxers, it was right after they went on this tear and they did really well. They're like, it kind of feels like you were unhappy with results. So you did this illegitimate test that we don't use, that doesn't have real validity in the middle of the night, and then you strip these women of their medals. We are not going to be beholden of these same criteria.
Okay.
I do not know what those gender tests were. And from everything I can find, the IBA is not releasing them. I'm not sure if it's for medical reasons they're not releasing them, or if it's because maybe it's a little sketchy. Maybe it's not
I
a valid test or a legitimate test.
I don't know.
What I do know is, regardless of any situation,
Hmm.
if you are given an advantage due to a medical condition or a medical situation,
Yeah.
unfortunately, you should not be allowed to compete,
Yeah.
especially in boxing. People can get seriously hurt. This is a
Yeah.
dangerous sport. You are punching people in the face.
Yeah.
People have died
In
from
boxing.
these
Yeah.
things. So, if that's the situation, if I'm not even going to speculate, has whatever going on that is giving her a physical advantage beyond just hard work and training and these
Yeah.
things. If it is a medical condition that is giving you an advantage,
Hmm.
unfortunately, no. I
Yeah.
do not think you should be allowed to compete.
I
I also am not clear on whether that's the case
yeah.
because of the drama between the IBA and the IOC
And the amount of conflicting and different
reports.
that we're seeing, we've seen like 8 at this
Yeah,
point that have,
all would, and they're all speculation.
they're all speculation, they're
And
all different. So for anyone wondering, we're talking about the Algerian women's boxer, that situation right now. Um,
yeah,
so I agree though. I think if this is a medical condition and it gives you an unfair physical advantage, I think that takes away from what the games of like the Olympic Games is meant to be. It's meant to be fair and friendly competition,
yeah.
and I say friendly as in like we're doing
Obviously,
this.
you're trying to
You're
win,
trying
but
to
we're not
win.
out here trying to kill anybody.
Yeah, we're out here to compete, but compete in a manner that like betters the world in a way. If
Yeah.
any, so I would call
We
it
talked about
a
unity versus division.
yeah, I
It's
would
meant
call
to
it a
unify.
friendly competition, but friendly. Like
Yeah.
you're going out there, you're trying to win, you're trying to be the best, you're trying to get the gold. Um, but yeah, I think because she has that unfair, or because it could be an unfair advantage, I think yeah, unfortunately, you can't.
I will say, I do think it sounds like there needs to be some kind of test,
Yeah.
legitimate test or something, because my passport says I'm a woman, which seems to be the criteria for the IOC.
Hmm.
I don't know that that's enough to be like, well, that's the criteria.
Because
Like,
I don't know how it worked. Like it's been a while since I've done a passport.
yeah,
If I
I don't
recall
know how.
correctly, you just had to tick a box. I
Yeah,
don't know
so
how
I
much
don't
proof
know,
goes into
like,
that.
or if it's like, okay, like if I go and renew my driver's license,
Yeah.
that's complicated. To change that is a process. So I don't know,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure that that's enough to decide you can compete with women or men in this sport
Yeah,
is based off the gender on your passport.
there has to be
So,
further testing or further like qualification, if
or
that
there
makes sense.
just
Like
needs to be honesty.
yeah.
If you have a medical situation that impacts it, you need to be honest about it. And then I believe the governing bodies of sports need to have a say in, we've talked about this. This is not to be to fill hate or to spread hate, but men and women are biologically different.
Hmm.
If you went through male puberty, you are automatically going to have an advantage when you compete
Yeah.
against women. That's not fair. That's not right.
No.
I want you to live your true self. But at the end of the day, you cannot be granted this advantage.
No.
I don't think that's appropriate, and I don't think that's in the spirit of competition for any sport, any governing body. So if that's the situation here, yes, something should have been done. Unfortunately, no matter what the situation was, the drama between the IBA and the IOC was never going to allow a consistent or
No.
cohesive conclusion to be made.
And
The other thing I do want to say really quickly, if you're
okay.
watching this podcast, if you agree with the things we're saying, awesome. If you disagree, I'd love to hear some thoughts. I do not want to hear hate. I will not tolerate hate. There's no reason to be disrespectful. There's no reason to turn into a mob against these people. That's not what we're doing here. Nothing we're saying is hate based. It is simply in the spirit of competition. We
Mhm.
don't think these things are appropriate or we don't think these things are fair. But it is not hate based. It is not
No.
bias based in any capacity. And I don't want to hear it. If we see those comments on our YouTube page, I will block you. That's just a heads up. We're not going to tolerate that. That's not who we are. That's not what we stand for.
But yeah.
We
That
are going to move on, finally, to just great athletic feats in the Olympics. Great things have happened. We're not just going to talk the US, we are going to talk some other countries. We're going to talk several sports. We're just going to celebrate these athletes. Brendan,
mhm.
you want to kick us off?
I do. So, we did have we are going to start with the United States because that is the group of people
Right.
we are going to follow the most. Couple quick things just to talk about it. The U.S. men's soccer team has been eliminated from the competition, so they are no longer participating. So that's sad to see. They did make it out of their pool play or knockout or into the knockout stages, so that was good for them. They
Who'd
did
they
lose
lose
to
to?
Morocco. They lost to Morocco
Okay.
4-0. They got their asses kicked. Um, the women's soccer team is still playing. They're still doing good. No surprise. The women's basketball team is still doing good. Once again, no surprise.
They did struggle in their 3-on-3 games. They did have some. They did
Yes.
take a loss in 3-on-3. I think they're still in contention for a gold for that, but they did have some struggles.
I haven't been paying attention to 3-on-3. I might have to. But the women's main basketball team still doing good, and the men's U.S. main basketball team still doing good. So we'll see how that goes. Uh,
Neither team has reported a loss.
yeah, they're both undefeated. The U.S. women's soccer team is, I believe, still undefeated as well. So we will continue to watch them. Um, Other than that, the United States claimed a gold in the men's 4 rowing for the first time in their history. I believe this is the first time they've ever medaled in this sport,
Yep.
which
It
drops.
was originally 6 sports they
Yeah,
have never medaled in.
and
They're
now
now at
it's
5.
the 5 sports they've never medaled in. I don't believe they can medal in any of these sports this year. I believe they've all been decided. Is handball they've never medaled in. They've never medaled in table tennis, trampoline, badminton, or rhythmic gymnastics. So keep an eye on those. I believe all of them have been decided to this point, and the U.S. has not medaled in any of them. But keep an eye out for future that those are the only sports that the U.S. has never medaled in the
I
Summer
don't
Olympics.
think handball has quite been decided, but I know the US is out of
Okay,
it.
so
Um,
the U.S.
and then
can't
table
medal.
tennis, we had one really good athlete aiming for a spot no one had ever made before, didn't quite reach it.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, and then badminton might still be going on, but I know the US has been eliminated from it.
okay, and then
And then
just
I don't think they compete in rhythmic gymnastics. I don't
I-
even know what that is. Simone Biles doesn't do it. I don't know why we're
yeah.
even talking about it.
And then just a couple more firsts. And other like St. Lucia
Yeah,
had their first ever medal. It was a gold medal in the 100-meter dash, and it was ran by. Let me find it. I cannot think of the person's name. Julian Alfred ran the 100-meter for St. Lucia and claimed gold. So that's awesome to see a country, a pretty small country, claim
yeah.
their first ever medal, and for it to be gold, that is
Go gold
incredible.
or go home.
Yeah, that is incredible to see. Um, Along with that, the Dominican or Dominica, sorry, Dominica won their first ever medal, and it was also gold, and this time in women's triple jump. And Thea Lafond, Lafond,
We apologize.
yeah, I terrible at saying names. Thea Lafond, I believe is how you pronounce it. Took home the gold for Dominica, and that is their first ever medal. So congrats to those two for bringing home some silverware for their countries for the first time ever. I'll pass it
Heck
on to
yeah.
you for some other stuff.
We are also going to talk. There are several athletes that became the first or the few to win the same event 4 times across 4 different Olympics.
Hmm.
This had only been done 5 times previously. It has now been done 3 this Olympics.
Hmm.
So Vincent Hannock won his 4th medal in skeet, a shotgun discipline, claiming gold, and it's his 4th time doing so. And Katie Ledecky took home her 4th gold medal in the 800 free for the 4th time, making her the most decorated female Olympian from the U.S.
Hmm.
This was a pretty incredible feat for her just in
Hmm.
general. But yeah, she does become. I'm sorry, it's only two added to the list.
Yeah.
I thought there was one other, and then I realized I was wrong. Um, but just for both of them to join this really elite club, 4 Olympics, that's 16 years. That's a long
Yeah.
time to compete at this level, to continue to win at this level, and both of them to take gold entering this is really awesome. Um, Staying with Ledecky, she did also break her own record for the 1500-meter freestyle.
Yeah.
She owns the 20 fastest times on this event,
Yeah.
so she beat herself. If
Um,
you watched it, it was really impressive.
yeah. If you watch it, it looks like she's in the pool by herself by the end of the race. Uh, that's how far ahead she was,
Yeah,
which that in and of itself is kind of
it's
incredible.
crazy.
When you think about it, she's been doing this, like you said, this is the 4th medal she's had in the 800 free. This is, I believe, her also 4th gold medal in the 1500 free in a
It
row.
might only be 3.
Okay,
I don't, because it's a new event. Like,
okay.
it's newer.
So it might only be her 3rd, but again, um, she broke her own Olympic record.
Yeah.
She owns the 20 fastest times in this um sport. So she's just dominated this for so long. Um, it's kind of incredible to see, and she's still doing it. Now, even though once again this is at least her 4th Olympics, I believe it's only her 4th.
Yeah.
So it's incredible to see that she's still dominating a discipline that is usually dominated by younger athletes,
Hmm.
purely because it takes a lot out of you. It's a
It's
lot of
hard. It's
swimming.
hard to compete for a long time. Um, we were watching beach volleyball the other day,
Yeah.
and they said something that just kind of floored me. Um, we were watching Cuba versus Switzerland in men's beach volleyball, and they said that the prime age for beach volleyball is like 30 to 35.
Hmm.
I was kind of floored by that
Yeah.
because when we talk sports, we're so used to like, okay, football at 35, you're like, okay, we're probably coming to the end.
Yeah. You hit
Um,
30 and you're entering the dog days.
Yeah,
of your
like
career.
I know you said that's kind of similar for soccer.
Soccer, you can play a little longer.
So to see some of these sports where, in swimming she's been competing for at minimum 17 years and to dominate at this level and to see some of these other sports where you can compete for so long.
Yeah.
The U did have the oldest Olympian at 52 on
Yeah.
their roster this year. So just to see kind of this age doesn't matter. We
Yeah.
compete
And
and we continue to compete is really fantastic. And I'm going to be honest with you, I feel wildly inadequate.
yeah. Um,
Like at 30, my body's falling apart. I'm over it. I'm like, I can barely get off the couch.
there's athletes that are younger than me getting gold. I'm in my 20s
For
for those.
reference, he's
I'm
20.
so for I think there's a 19-year-old that is getting medals, which makes me feel
Skateboarding. Like all of the skateboarding athletes were like 13 to 15.
it's
I was
wild. It's
like,
crazy.
I think at 13, I was tripping walking down the hall.
Yeah,
like, yeah, I played sports, but nowhere near.
and then also I think the funniest story that's come out of the Olympics, I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's the Turkish pistol
Oh yeah,
shooter. He's 51, and he, unlike a lot of athletes in that sport, so pistol shooting is really interesting because these athletes come really kitted out with like a lens for one eye to make you see better, a lens for the other eye to keep it from interrupting your shot. You have like all this fancy stuff. This dude, 51 years old from Turkey, shows up with nothing but his glasses, like his prescription glasses, and comes in second. He gets the silver medal with nothing. And yeah, he was one of the older athletes at the events, being in his, I believe, 51 is what I saw.
yeah.
Uh, which again just goes to show like a 51-year-old placed second in a sport. That's incredible.
With like so little equipment. I mean, I'm telling you, we found a Turkish assassin. I'm not. I
Yeah,
don't think
someone someone said it. They're like, we know a trained marksman or
when we
assassin.
see one.
Yeah, hitman when we see
Um,
one.
what I did take note of, I found interesting. It's not to like one versus the other. But I watched women's pistol shooting a little bit. I caught some of that, and I
Uh-huh.
caught the final gold medal. I don't even want to speculate because I'm gonna screw it up, and that's disrespectful. But I did watch that girl win gold. There were a couple women's in the pistol shooting that kind of had similar setup to him. Of it was
Yeah.
just their glasses, very small earplugs,
He didn't even have
went
ear
in, and
protection. That was like the
he
other.
actually did.
He
He did.
did.
If you see, yeah, he's got little like those like roll up and then you stick them in your ear,
Oh, okay.
little yellow. So he did have a little bit, not like my headphones anywhere near,
Yeah.
but he did have that.
Okay.
So it's just interesting to see kind of how these people succeed with such different
Setups.
levels. Yeah, setups compared to what other people have, and kind of what the norm is. The norm is these really intense eye protection, really intense ear protection. We go out and we do the thing, and that guy rolled up, and the girl that took gold in women's pistol shooting was the same. They just kind of rolled up with their own like their normal glasses, little ear protection, and went, "Let's bust this."
Yeah.
Um,
So,
so it's really great to see. It's been
yeah.
super impressive.
And then
Um,
moving
we're gonna
on.
stick with impressive, and we're gonna talk some of the new world records that were
Mhm.
broken and beaten in this year's Olympics so far.
Yeah. So to start, Bobby Fink of Team USA set a new world record in the 1500-meter freestyle swimming event, with a time of 14 minutes 30 seconds. Wait, yeah, 14 minutes 30 seconds and 67 whatever seconds. I don't
Millisecond.
milliseconds
Yeah.
to win gold. Cool, really great. Love to see world records broken because they're just kind of these points in history. The
Yeah,
U.S.
it's just being at the Olympics to take
Yeah,
these records now, because they have world championships like
yeah,
all year, like
and
every year. To see them broken at the Olympics is just kind of that.
I
I think it. puts like an extra notch in it. It's
Yeah,
like not only did I do it, I did it here.
because you'll see like people break Olympic records at the
Yeah.
Olympics, which obviously happen. But I think to do it to break a world record at the Olympics is just like another like awesome thing. This is like the peak competition. This is like
Yeah.
you at your best, and you get the best time ever. That's awesome. The U.S. mixed 4x400 meter relay team won its preliminary heat in a time of 3 minutes 7 seconds and 41 milliseconds on Friday, which got the world record for that. They did end up finishing silver after the final, like during the final race for that, because that was just their preliminary. So they're like
And then
qualifying heat.
Poland took gold in that, and they still didn't beat the
Yeah,
US's new world record. Which it's just kind of interesting to see, to beat a world record and then it not be
yeah, good
like you
enough to win
couldn't
gold.
quite match it. They actually came, I think it was 10 seconds under this time. And Poland, I think they came for their silver medal. It was 3 minutes 17 seconds
Mm,
and 0.71 milliseconds.
mm,
And Poland came in slightly over that or under that for gold.
okay.
So, it's cool that they broke this world record. Unfortunately, it didn't get them gold, but it's a really great thing to accomplish.
Yeah, and then just to continue on, the women's 4x100 medley relay team for the United States broke the world record with a time of 46:63. That doesn't seem right. No, it is right. No, no, it's not.
Oh, you know what? Hold on, because it's a copy paste. Just just delete that part. Just
Oh, okay.
because it a lot of this was copy paste, so that might have been by how much they beat it by, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Uh,
So go.
yeah, they broke the record. Um, they
I would just start over. I would just start that one over.
Yeah. The women's 4x100 medley relay team of the U.S. broke the last world record for that event of 3 minutes 50 seconds, 40 milliseconds. We do not have the time they beat or the time that they actually got to beat the record, but they still set the record, which is really cool to see. And then, oh God, Lim Shion
Shion shot a
Shion.
world record of 694 points to lead recurve women's qualifying in the first session of the competition. She's part of the Korean archery team, and first time for them to set this record. That was really awesome to see. Again, we're talking other countries, other sports. I think it's impressive when anybody sets these records. It would be really heartbreaking, but if like someone came out and beat Ledecky's world record in the 1500, like we would talk about it.
Yeah,
So yeah, for Korea to lead the world in points for archery was impressive. And we watched a lot of archery,
yeah.
and the women's Korean team smashed.
They
It was impressive to
yeah.
see. We got really into those matches and into
Hmm.
those events.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it
It
was
was
just
a
an
fun thing
event
to
they did.
watch.
Yeah.
And then
And
China,
then
I'll let you go.
China's Pan
Zanli,
Sanel
Zan
Zomley
Zanli.
made history on Wednesday, winning the gold medal in the men's 100-meter freestyle, breaking his own world record, which he set back in February. It was the first world record broken in the pool for the Olympic Games, so that was really impressive. It's kind of like Ledecky, like when you're breaking your own records and it's still going into the record book. I think
Yeah,
is really impressive.
yeah,
He now owns the two fastest times for this event.
yeah,
And then obviously you make history by breaking the first record at the Olympics. That's really impressive. It's really great to see. I was it's just been incredible to see kind of all of these different feats of athleticism and all
Yeah.
of these different accomplishments being made.
Hmm.
So that's been great. I've definitely enjoyed it, and yeah,
Yeah, the Olympics have been going. The athletes at the Olympics have been really showing up. Like Simone Biles has won a couple golds to add to her
yeah,
legacy of being one of the most decorated women gymnasts and one of the most decorated women athletes ever. Um, the U.S. is leading the medal count right now. Total medal count, I should say. They have, I can find it,
75 total
75
medals. They are trailing China in
gold
gold
medal.
medals by
I,
3. China has 3, and the U.S. has 19.
you mean
But um, they are dominating in terms of total medal count because China comes in next at 52
yeah,
overall. So, I it's cool to track. I don't think it's the most important thing.
no,
Is your total medal or even how many you get. When you think we talked earlier about like St. Lucia and Dominica.
yeah,
To get their first one ever
hmm
is mildly impressive. It's really great for them. It's really great to see that history being made. So yeah, it's great that the USA has 75.
but
But it's also great to see these countries just get one.
the USA fields like 10 times the amount of athletes as a lot of these countries. So for
Yeah,
them to it makes sense for the US to get more medals because it just have more people competing. So for
yeah.
these smaller countries that only have I don't know how many St.
Maybe
Lucia
2
has,
or 3 athletes
but like there's countries that I saw when they were doing opening ceremonies that had 5. For these countries to get medals with just 5 athletes really goes to
is impressive.
yeah, so like again, medal count isn't that important, but it is still an interesting thing to look at,
It's cool to see.
especially when you have again countries that just have less athletes getting up there on that list. It's awesome to see, and yeah, the Olympics in terms of the athletes is really fun to watch.
And
Um,
it's been incredible. It's we talk about every year, and we've talked in past episodes, the sports that we've gotten into.
yeah,
Um, you know what? We were really into
we got
canoe slaloming the other day,
yeah the kayak
and then yesterday
slaloms,
we were watching the kayak one, trying to figure out the rules, the
yeah,
criteria, we're trying to figure out the nuances of these sports.
like
How do they
fencing.
work? How do you get better? We've gotten really into archery
Hmm.
just to kind of, some of these unfortunately won't be top of my radar again for another 4 years. But
Hmm.
for every year, another event to kind of catch my attention
Yeah,
is really exciting.
and
They added breakdancing this year. I know we were both wanting to watch that just to kind of see
what that
what
is.
the criteria for
Yeah,
that is, how that's gonna look.
if it's gonna be like a
It's a 2-day
gymnastics.
event. Yeah,
I imagine it'll be like a gymnastics thing where it'll be just scored by judges on like a probably 10 system.
yeah.
But yeah, it getting into these sports because yeah, I don't watch the Olympics to watch like basketball really. I just put on the Olympics and whatever's on, I end up
I'm gonna
kind of
get into.
watching. So yeah, for like we got really into archery. We got really into the like kayak slalom and the kayak what was it called? Kayak cross. That was what it was called.
Yeah,
Kayak
I
cross.
thought it was canoe cross.
I thought it was kayak. Either way,
Okay, it's one of those.
yeah.
We got really into it.
I got
Uh,
really into BMX that race when it was on. The Olympics is just a good time to find sports and just kind of latch onto them. That
I
we find
because
interesting.
of when I've been watching it, because it's like the main thing I listen to at work. We had a debate before the season Olympics started. I was like, I don't really know if table tennis could count, and you argued with me. You were like, no, no. And then I watched it and I was like, oh my god, you're right.
They get
Like
into it, man.
this is a sport.
They
Um
they go flying around
so
that table.
to
It's
to
fun to
watch
watch.
that and to listen to them kind of yelling. It's been great. I got a little into badminton.
Yeah.
I got to watch their semifinal round the other day. That was really cool to see.
I was getting really
Uh,
into water polo. I find that
yeah,
sport to be really
yeah.
fun. There's a couple.
Oh, I realized we were talking first ever. I
Hmm.
forgot one.
Oh,
The women's seven rugby team
got their first ever
took home their
medal.
first medal ever in the event.
Hmm.
So that was really cool to see. Obviously, we get really into rugby when it's on.
Yeah,
Finally kind of understanding the nuances and the rules.
yeah.
Not because it's complicated, but we just haven't had the time or taken some of the time. It's hard to find rugby to watch
Hmm.
where we are. So to really see that um, in the Olympics has been great. We've been able to understand it better,
Yeah,
and yeah, to see the U.S. team take home their first medal in this event was incredible.
yeah. Especially the way they did it, being a last second
Yeah, that
try. That was
that final like 5 minutes of that game was crazy. I was like, "There's no, I don't know, I don't
yeah.
just."
And then
Um,
to watch that I don't know her name. It wasn't Mayer, but it was but to watch the one that won the game go for
the
that like 90-yard run,
return was
it was
crazy.
it was just so fun to watch. And so like this is why you kind of watch the Olympics is for moments
Yeah,
like this of like you got your first ever medal and it was only a bronze, but it's still an incredible accomplishment and you did it in the final seconds
yeah,
on
like
this
it
like incredibly like long and like
athletic run,
yeah.
like
She had
it
to
was really
break a
cool to
couple
see.
tackles. Like
Hmm.
it was incredible. Yeah, just getting into like these random sports too. There's a couple that I haven't been able to quite latch on
We haven't
to.
quite caught, or they're on, and we're like, cool. We haven't quite
Haven't quite latched on to.
found it yet.
Who knows?
And then I don't really want to get into it too much. I don't think it's the important part, but there have been some interesting celebrities at the games,
Yeah,
with the Kelseys there to watch field hockey.
I will say
Jason's interaction and arm wrestling with the
the
women's rugby team was a
yep.
lot of fun
I
because
think
he said on his podcast, like, I don't think rugby players could play football. And he's kind of come back and been like, never mind. Never mind.
yeah.
Uh,
I think my favorite right now is that the U.S. has genuinely made Snoop Dogg their
oh my
mascot
gosh.
for the games.
Yeah.
I think it's just because he has like the perfect like
Yeah.
energy of he does not care what people think of him. Like recently, they had the equestrian games going on, and he was in a full equestrian clothing, not like
Yeah.
not like normal U.S. stuff, but like a full like equestrian get up. To watch that, he's been dressed in like
He's
all USA gear. He's just been
He's been at, like, all of Simone Biles'
yeah,
competitions, cheering her on. There were videos of he went and, like, did a little judo, and
yeah,
learned some of that. There's a fun one for, like, ollie lifting,
oh
Olympic
yeah.
lifting, but there's no weights on it, so he just did the pole, but he did the like yeah, I don't know who decided this or how this was decided,
Or if
but I
he
think
just
it's, like, the
decided
best
himself,
decision that the US has, like, ever made. Like,
and
to
like
see his energy and the excitement he brings to these Olympics has been
I
fantastic.
think just the raw like childish energy he brings because that's
Yeah,
how it
and I
feels.
would say childlike passion. He's
Yeah,
just enamored with all of it.
he's just
You and
having
I have kinda
fun.
talked there are some sports we haven't quite been able to get into. He does not care.
Yeah,
He's like, "This is awesome. Let's do it."
but
So
it's
that's been a
been
lot of fun. And then we did kind of talk about it to see Simone Biles' husband
yeah,
at the Olympics, even though training camp is going on right now, has been really great. If you saw him the other day, he was keeping
yeah.
score.
He was
He
taking
was writing
notes,
down her like to be like, I know what's going on. I know where she's gonna come in at.
and
Um,
I
has
think he
been
was
really great.
yeah,
Just to see the support of these loved ones and these athletes um, across all relationship types and across all dynamics has been really fantastic. Just to see the overwhelming support, not only from your country, not only from the other athletes. I think we always kind of commend
yeah,
the the camaraderie and the sportsmanship.
Like it's
But to see these families travel and just support each other and love each other
yeah,
has been so awesome to see.
and it's also just
Even
an
if you don't win, there's just it's all about unity. It's all about
mhm.
love.
And then it's also been really fun to see like the other athletes come into other events. Like LeBron James
Oh yeah.
was at a beach volleyball game with his family. I believe he was with his daughter and his wife. Went to the game. He was at that. Anthony Edwards has been at, I believe, a couple of the like tennis matches,
Hmm.
cheering people on. It is really fun. Like obviously, these athletes are cheering on their countrymen, but I think it's more than that. I think they're trying to also just enjoy the games themselves. So for them to
Yeah.
be able to go and watch events happen, even if they're participating in events themselves, has been really cool to see that they still care and they still want to like just enjoy the
Because I think
Olympics.
sometimes we see that in the US on a smaller scale of like you see NBA athletes go to WNBA games.
Yeah.
Or you see some people go to like NFL games or especially the Super Bowl. But to see at the Olympics just this overall support
Hmm.
um for events you probably aren't on your radar like 95% of the time,
Yeah.
but to show that support and just like you said, if I was competing in the Olympics, I'd be at every event I could possibly be at, just to
Yeah.
see them live, to see sometimes these records being broken or see these athletes maybe you hear about but you never get to see, you never get to meet, you never get to see these events,
Hmm.
um is really impressive. And yeah, I to show the support, to be a part of the whole experience, not just I'm focused on what I'm doing and that's it, I think is really cool, to soak in the whole experience of the Olympics, the whole gravity of it. It is really great to see.
Yeah. Um, I think that's pretty much it for us today, guys. Um, So if you want us to talk about anything, leave a comment down below. If you want to discuss something with us about sports, about football, about the Olympics, also hit us down below in the comments.
We'll
Um,
talk about it. We'll do it.
yeah, we'll respond.
Keep it safe.
Yeah, we'll definitely
Safe zone.
respond. Um, but yeah, so comments are always available for you guys to like talk to us. If you do want to see something or that we missed something, let us know. Um, I've been
Or
Brendan.
if there's a team, if there's like a team, you're like, hey, talk about, give us your thoughts on this. Hit us up.
Yeah,
And then always remember to like and subscribe because we are Flock's Nest Podcast, and I am Dallas.
I'm Brendan. Have a good day.